There we go. Tammy, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Well, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Tammy with Pro Leverage, and some of the unique things that I'm going to bring to you guys today is based on my years of experience. I have been in a licensed agent for 18 years in 3 different states. Been a single agent, been on teams, I've grown teams, and now I'm an owner of a transaction management company. So wanted to bring you guys, what to do when you have a contract. I've had agents over the years, they're like, yay, I've got a contract, got my first one, I'm so excited. I'm done, right? I just show up at closing, right? I'm like, no, strap on your boots because the hard work's really starting now. So that's what we're going to talk about today is what do you do when you get a contract, right? So why do your clients hire you versus maybe an offer pattern online, right? Because it's becoming more and more prolific, and that is part of our business. So why do they hire you? They hire you for your knowledge and your expertise. They want a person that they can trust and rely on. And so they've got very high expectations. So we're going to talk about how do we meet and exceed those? How do we make the transaction process either easier and smoother for them and for yourselves as well, and just really evaluate what should you be doing. Maybe you've got a pretty tight system, you just need to kind of want to finesse that a little bit. Maybe you don't have a system at all, maybe you're just winging it. Maybe you're the one that like, I got a contract, I'll see you in 30 days, bye buyer. You might not see them in 30 days. So let's learn some stuff today on how we can make that easier for everybody. So my first challenge is to you is most of the top agents that I know, my high D drivers, are not organized people. Organized is like a bad word to them. So let's make it easy. And the reason why I challenge you to organize once is come up with a system that works for you, right? It's got to work for you and not against you. Believe me, guys, I've tried in 18 years, many different methods and systems. And some of them I found, wow, I'm chasing this stupid spreadsheet more than it's working and making me money. So whether you use .loop or Google Keep, whether you're an Excel person, whether you just are, pen and paper and a binder, you have a sheet that kind of has all your transaction details on there because you're on the road, what works for you, right? Just because I love old school, I still want a binder, I want at least one piece of paper, that works for me. That might not work for you. You may be way more high tech. It's easier on your phone. What works for you? So what are you organizing? Question is, so you want to make sure you can easily track the other agent on the transaction, who's your title or your attorney, your inspection dates, your contract dates, your lender contact information, and what are your standard steps that you do for a buyer. Guys, don't rely on your memory unless you've got a photographic memory. If anything like mine, don't rely on it. So you want to have, what are those tasks, those processes, those steps that you want to take to make sure you don't miss any details, right? And then it's super, super smooth. Okay. So most importantly, again, guys, use whatever works for you, but use this word organize, this bad word, once. Get yourself a solid system. Okay. At the end of the call, for those that you still are on, I will drop, I've got a sheet. I really want to figure out how can I bring some value to you today, right? What can you walk away with in your hands to build your business today? So I do have kind of a contract to close, very, very broad for buy side and sell side. I think there's like 80 things on each side. Again, some will apply, some won't. So I'll drop that tool at the end. But again, I just want to have something to give you guys today if organization is not your best word. So I'll have that for you. So the biggest thing I would challenge you is know your contract dates. I still have people that have been in the business 3 to 5 years that still come to me and they're like, well, how does it work? I forget how to, they don't remember. So let's talk about it. We're going to talk about specifically Florida contract. Okay. And guys, please feel free to jump in if you've got, I'm going to try and bring this chat window up. Okay. I saw there's a chat and it's just a notice to everybody. So if you have questions, jump in, chat, slow me down, flag me, whatever you need to do. So knowing your contracts is really, dates are important. Okay. I had one agent who came up to me and she's like, Tammy, why are you so intent on contract dates? Like, why are you bugging me? Aren't they just suggestions? And I'm like, no. Guys, contract dates are legally binding dates. There are repercussions, good or bad, if those dates are missed and ignored. So that takes you knowing your contract, but you have to know how to calculate them. Now, a lot of the contracts that I work with in Florida, the executed date based on the contract says when the last person signed or initialed and it was delivered to the other party. So guys, that's why we have to know our contracts. That little word "and" trips up people that have been in the business a long time. Well, no, it was when the last person signed. I'm like, well, keep reading that sentence. Oh, and yes, it is both parts. That's what the Florida FAR standard contract and as is contract, that's what makes it executed. Why do we care? Every other date compounds based off of that date. So when an agent turns a contract into me, they're like, hey, here's my executed contract. My first question, if they don't remember to tell me, what's your executed date? Not going to guess. Legally binding dates. Okay. Also in the Florida standard, and again, every contract may be a little different, so know what contract you're working with. Florida FAR actually recently had an update. I am still seeing offers on properties from buyer's agents using 2 to 3 versions ago. So guys, if you're listing, make sure you're on the most current contract. It's the best to protect your client. So the first deposit is typically 3 to 5 days, right? But it compounds on that executed date. So if it falls on a Saturday or Sunday, it bumps to the next business day. And so it's really worth calculating these out to make sure, did any of these fall on a business or a holiday or a weekend? In Florida, we don't do closings on Saturdays. I just got a contract yesterday. I'm like, yay, a Saturday closing date. How are we planning to do that one? Technically, it bumps to the next business day. Okay. Inspection period ends. If you're on the seller side, buyer's agent ignores this date, bonus for your seller. That's your buyer, not bonus. Okay. Typically, you will find that once the inspection period ends and no notification was made, no agreement to either repair or credit or cancel, buyer's deposit becomes firm. Very hard to get it back after that. So know your contract. Are you representing the buyer? Are you representing the seller? What do you want to do with that date? Obviously, second deposit, this trips a lot of people up. We tend to forget that there's even this out here. I kind of wish they had done away with it personally. Either like always have a first and second or just have a first, but that's my nature. Loan approval period, now also in our standard FAR contract. Please know the changes and how that affects it. And the appraisal is part of that. Okay. I think that was a really good move that they took with that. And then of course, closing date. Okay. Again, all of these go back to the executed contract date. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about these dates in just a minute. Anybody want to jump in? Any questions on contract dates, how to calculate them?
Tammy, real quick question. Yes, on the inspection period, you said not only does the inspection have to be done, but any reparations or any agreements between the two parties also has to be done within that time period?
Well, yes, that is always the strong recommendation because I literally just saw this. Now, unless you have a standard contract and you know that the repairs fit under that dollar amount, we had a seller swear up and down that they were going to sign to agree to repairs. And well, yeah, well, I'm late. I'm traveling, whatever. I'll sign it tonight. I'll sign it tonight. Next morning, they changed their mind. Did we have an agreement? Did we have a written agreement between the buyer and seller? Now, you can fight that battle, but let's just not fight the battle, right? Easier course of action. Let's schedule the inspection, obviously, as soon as you can. Obviously, sometimes, I've seen 3-day inspection period. I'm like, oh, holy Hannah, that's tight. Schedule your inspection and schedule a time the following day with your buyer. Hey, just want to make sure you're going to get the report from your inspector the following day. Let's plan on touching base around 3 o'clock tomorrow. And let's just review and see if you have any questions. A lot of the things we can talk through that the inspector points out are helpful. But remember when we made an offer, we were aware of that roof, or we were aware of that floor was kind of dinged up. So let's talk through that inspection together. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. Again, sometimes, everything doesn't get signed till the next day. Just depends on how much risk your client wants to take, right? It's not our risk. Hey, Mr. Buyer, we can let this go. Seller saying they're going to sign. I haven't seen it yet. It's 8 o'clock. do you want to turn in a cancellation of contract? Or are you okay if they wake up tomorrow and say, yeah, I changed my mind, not signing? Not our risk, client's risk. Good question.
I have a question, well, more of a suggestion for everyone. So typically in this market that we're seeing, it's very high paced and we're battling upon, multiple offers and things like that. So we try to shorten the inspection period. So typically for me, when I'm submitting an offer, I give a 3-day period to be able to submit the binder, the escrow deposit. So what I try to do to help my buyers, if I'm going to do like a 5-day inspection period, I say, okay, guys, this is what we'll do. We'll do inspection day 1 or day 2. So we get that report back. So we know before you even submit escrow that we're moving forward. So we already have submitted release and cancellation. So if you decide that you want to cancel, we need to make sure we deliver this release and cancellation by the end of the end of the inspection period by 5 p.m. because if not, this is in jeopardy. So to protect your buyers and just to be a little more strategic, I recommend doing that. And that helps me to ensure that I don't lose anybody's money. So hopefully that helps anybody.
That's a great point. I have one agent that typically always says 5 days. And guys, honestly, he does not get pushback. So that's a really, really great point. And I'm putting 2 and 2 together now why he's doing that. Because yes, what he does is when he submits his offer, he knows his home inspector really well and puts his home inspector on that email just as a blind copy. So the inspector knows it's coming. So his inspector will usually actually block out, just kind of put pencil him in on his first available to hold it. So that's a really good point. Any other questions on contract dates? I love that you guys have questions. It makes the class more interesting. All right. Now let's move on to keeping everybody on the same page. So again, when I get a contract, I build out all those contract dates. I review the contract, all addendums. Take a red hot minute, guys, and look through. Is everything signed? Is everything initialed? Are there names at the top of the buyer addendums? HOA condo miter, most often missed. Did both the agents sign the lead-based paint? So I just take 2 minutes and I literally go, okay, 2 buyers, 2 sellers, initials, and literally count them, right? Don't even look at the data that's in there, just count initials and signatures. I had one agent who turned her contract in. She had been on vacation, whatever, it was like 4 days later. And I called her back and I said, question for you. Do you have a different page 12 of the contract where the seller signed? And she's like, are you serious? I have not been under contract for 4 days. It's like, yeah, unfortunately, unless you got something different. So take a red hot minute, protect yourself. Now that the rush is done, you're ready to send it out. So I send out emails. We send out emails to everybody in the transaction, and they do have different information. My goal is to put everybody on the same page day 1. I would rather discuss with the other, have the 2 agents discuss what is the executed date, because sometimes they have differing opinions. Okay. But I'd rather discuss that now than we're trying to do a deposit or do an inspection response. It's a horrible time to try and get in a battle of, well, wait a second, you didn't calculate the contract dates right. Okay. So I'm going to talk through real quick. If I go too fast, slow me down. I do talk fast. But what do I send as a TC? What do I send to attorneys? I want to give everything to the attorney or the lender, whomever, what they need to go do to set up their files. I don't want them coming back and stopping for questions, right? That's my goal as a transaction manager for my agent, is to leverage and save them time. So if I give them 3 of the 5 things they need, they're probably going to come back 2 more times. Well, who wants to stop and answer that? So the attorney, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to let them know, here's a new contract for you. And I put that in the title, right? New contract, property address, please send buyer wiring instructions. By the way, contract price, contract dates, I go ahead and put them in. Believe me, guys, I've had discussions with title and attorneys on how to calculate contract dates. Pretty shocking. So I'm going to put them out there, right? I'm also going to give them all the agents involved in the transaction, the lender's contact information, and my buyer or seller. I do ask title and lender or title and attorney, please contact here's the seller's contact information, the buyer's contact information. Please contact them directly for any forms or questions or information you might need from them. Some of the information you require is personal, and I want them to be able to ask those questions of you. Twofold. I don't want their personal data in my files, security risk. And secondly, you know how they keep going, can you chase down my form from your buyer? Can you chase down my form from your seller? I don't have time to do that, right? As an agent, I don't need to be spending 10 minutes chasing down their form. I need to spend 10 minutes on lead generation. Okay, this is all about saving you time. So I'm going to give them the data that I have. If I have the association contact information from the MLS, I'm going to copy and paste it in there. Okay, so if it's an attorney that or title that I haven't worked for before, I'm going to go ahead and give them my agent name, information, license, my broker address, my broker license. I don't want them coming back and asking me for this data that I could have had in one email. Okay, sometimes my favorite is you send it into the person that's on the contract. Another person emails you 10 minutes later, congratulations on your contract. Please provide all this information and give this form to your client. Wait a second. Oh, thank you so much for your email. Please refer to the email that I sent Sally that was on the contract. All this information is included, as well as the information for the buyer or seller, so you can contact them directly for their private information. Please let me know if you have questions. Done. I resend it. I'm not going to take the time to give them those answers again. I have provided it. Okay. Lender, similar. With the attorney, all docs signed by buyer seller. Okay, always attaching those. Lender, contract dates, other agent's name, and which agent should the appraiser contact. I want them to have that right up front. Okay, I'm going to tell them who the title person is, who the contact is at the attorney or title person, contract dates, and then as well as contract documents, addendums, exception, seller's disclosure. Anybody know why? Everybody sit in their desk, do this. Red flags, that's your red flags. Seller's disclosures, putting anything with the repairs in the contract, putting in selling furniture in the contract, all red flags. Okay, so we want to be very, very careful that we are turning in a super clean contract, addendums, contract pages, all squared away, all initialed, all signed. No repairs. We don't sell the grand piano in the contract because we don't sell furniture, we sell real estate. And no seller's disclosure. Seller's disclosure you always want, but that is literally a disclosure from the seller to the buyer. Okay, if you check it off in that section when you check off all your addendums, guess what the underwriter is going to ask for? A can of red hot worms. Okay, so that's what I'm sending to the lender. To the other agent, I am sending them contract dates, first of all, letting them know whether it's, listing side or buy side, about inspections, or, please let me know when your buyer schedule inspections. Do you have the HOA docs or condo docs or application, or can you please provide them? If survey is a question, asking it there. So I have a standard set of questions that I just delete what I don't need. Okay. Big thing is I do want them, if it's there, the listing agent, it's a condo, I want all condo docs as listed on the condo writer and the association application. Standard, how many days does your buyer seller, how many standard days does the buyer have to make application to the HOA or condo? 5. 5. Yes. And you know what? 98% of agents miss that until there's a problem. Okay. I had one that I kept telling the buyer, here's your date. Here's your date. He was in Canada. Said, please overnight this. We are now at day 8. This was due, right? He chose not to, eventually dropped it in snail mail, and it took 2.5 weeks to get to the association. And guess which association it was? The one that takes 30 days. We now have a problem, right? Buyer failed to do his due diligence. Now, again, like we had talked about with the deposit, if it's going to be a longer inspection period, your buyer doesn't always want to send in that $250. Change that date. If you've got a 10-day inspection period, make the HOA application due at day 11. Right? That's the biggest pushback I get from buyers. It's, well, I'm not done my inspection. I really don't want to spend $250. What if the inspection doesn't go through? Hey, then let's get an extension on that. Or proactively represent the buyer, 5 days for inspection, period, 5 days for EMD, 7 days for HOA application. Just an idea. Buyer or seller, same thing, giving them the contract dates. Big thing. Hey, buyer, seller, I'll be watching these along with you. I'd recommend you put them in your calendar, but I will be sure to give you reminders. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give them the title person's or attorney's information. Hey, they're going to reach out to you. They're going to ask you typically to fill out a general form that will help them set up their file correctly from the beginning, especially Mr. Seller. Especially when it's time to have money, you want to have that set up correctly. Okay. Also giving buyer seller, all docs signed by buyer seller. Buyer, I'm giving them, here are your next steps. And guys, I don't overload them because, they're going to go through about 30 steps, top to bottom. What are the next 3 things you want them to do? Hey, I want you to get that wire in or deliver to the office or have a courier. That EMD is due. Second, let's get your inspection scheduled. Okay. Give them the sheet, give them your recommendations. Hey, attached are some recommendations. Please check them out, and however you do it, let me know which inspector you want me to schedule this. We should have this scheduled within the next 24 hours at the latest because inspectors are busy. And third, finance, please contact your lender. I've provided your lender the contract dates and documents. Please confirm that they have everything they need from you at this point. Let's get this, a step ahead. So 3 things, I give them 3 things to do, not 22. Right. That's why they hired you. You're going to guide them through the process. They are going to be overwhelmed enough as it is day one when they get your email and the attorney's email with and then another email to the link to their portal and then their lender and a link to their portal. They're like, oh, why am I doing this? Any questions on keeping everybody day one on the same page? Anybody see the value in doing that? I see a lot of thumbs up. Good. So let's talk about some time saving tricks. Okay, guys, again, this is my 18 years of doing this, of failing forward, of learning hard lessons and going, if I had just done that before at this point, it would have been easy. So condo docs, HOA docs. Condo docs required, HOA docs optional. Please know in the condo docs, there are typically 5 or 6. They are required. It is the seller's responsibility to provide them to the buyer, meaning if you're the listing agent, 2 weeks into the contract is not a good time to start getting those. You get the listing agreement, make sure you get the association contact information, start asking. Start bugging that association. If you've ever dealt with an association, it's an uphill battle. Ask the seller to help you do so. Sometimes they have access to a portal where they can just download all the documents. Okay. Really important to get those all in the association application. Sometimes you'll find the docs online. That's awesome. Currently, you won't find current financials and budgets. Very, very important. You also won't always find the application. Look at the application. Does your seller have to sign it, or does the seller have to sign it before you give it to your buyer? Okay. So when we're starting a listing, prepping for the listing, I'm calling the association. Okay, as the agent. Hey, I just want to confirm there's a lot of information in the MLS. What's your pet policy? What's your leasing policy? Can investor buy this and lease this right away? Hey, how do we get the documents? Hey, what's your application process? Hey, what's your estoppel process? I usually ask the association, hey, can you give me 3 minutes of your time? I'm getting ready to list a property. I want to respect the rules of this association. And I just want to make sure I've got everything right first. My association manager, like, I never get these calls. Yeah, I'd love to go through that with you, or send me your form and I'll fill it out. I'd love to make sure it's right. And then some just don't answer you. So while you're getting the listing, work on those HOA docs, work on those condo docs. Both of them, if you can get the master insurance policy in advance, that's awesome, and it will save you times and headaches. Application as well. And again, look at it real quick before it goes to the buyer. Does the seller need to have a signature? Again, confidential information. Buyer should fill it out, or seller should sign it first and then buyer. Survey and elevation certificate. Your listing, ask your seller, ask your seller, ask your seller. if they have it. Have there been any changes to this survey? Some attorneys will allow a fence to be drawn on by the seller and sign an affidavit signed. They will typically also sign an affidavit saying there has been no changes to the survey, if they have any knowledge. If they have an flood policy, they will have an elevation certificate. The easier way is to email their insurance agent and say, hey, insurance agent, please email me a copy of my elevation certificate. I'm selling my home. Okay, easier to get ahead of time. If you're financed or your buyer is financed, here's a little trick. Buyer's going to say, well, I don't want to spend $350 for a survey. Mr. Lender, do I need a survey? And lender's going to say, well, I don't need you to have a survey. Well, the title company, well, why are you making me get the survey? If the lender why do you need a survey? And title's like, I don't need a survey, but your lender wants clear title. Part of giving clear title is a survey. Catch 22. Okay, so if we can get the survey and it is approved by the titles underwriter to use, sometimes that can save your buyer money. Your buyer also may want to have a conversation with their attorney. Is there benefit to me having a survey in my name? Might be something you want to jot down. Why would a buyer want to have a survey in their name? Had it happen? Okay, it's called title insurance. Buyer loan process. Make sure you know and understand the process. It is highly involved. Okay, make sure you're coaching your buyer. Hey, buyer, your lender's probably going to ask for some initial documents. If they haven't explained this, they're going to ask for initial documents, general that they ask everybody. And then they're going to look at those documents and they're going to have additional questions. Okay, they may ask for some additional clarification. Don't take it personally. This is how loans work. If you want a loan, you give the documents. If you don't want to give the documents, don't get a loan. Kind of that simple. But buyer, hold on, don't take it personal. You will jump through a lot of hoops. There is a lot of red tape, but the joy in it is they're going to loan you a lot of money at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so just make it normal to them. Okay, make it very normal. I get the question often of, well, why do they care if I've got a large deposit? Why is it their business? Well, because most human beings don't think of hiding mattress money or selling a little something somewhere and putting cash in the bank. It's my cash. I earned it. I could put that in. It was my birthday money or whatever it is. Okay, they have to document the process. That's why the lender wants to know. So if they're taking things personal, try and back that down. It's not personal. It's tedious. It's one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. But it's okay. Trust your lender. Just get it to them. Okay, wind mitigation report. So I am an import to Florida about 9 years ago. I was like, what in the Sam Hill is a wind mitigation report? Part of getting your insurance, for those of you don't know, wind mitigation report is an insurance report, just like, when they get the insurance quote that can provide additional discounts. Okay, similar to the 4-point as well. So they're insurance reports that are required to give discounts. Okay, wind mitigation reports, literally a report of how the roof was installed and how many nails are in the hurricane clips. That was a weird one to me when I moved here. I was like, explain that term. If your buyer is super tight on money, right? Your lender said, hey, take them out, but low HOE fees. Get an insurance quote when you're in the process of narrowing down and writing offers, right? I've had a lot of buyers who, of course, wood frame construction in Sarasota is less expensive, but guess what? The insurance is so much higher, right? And so you're paying your insurance policy over 12 months. So that amount that it spreads out, it's not, you're paying insurance policy over 30 years, it's over 12 months. And literally, because the insurance came in so high, which was a high monthly amount, it disqualified them. They couldn't buy the home. They had to go find a block home instead. So if you know your buyer's tight on money, help them get an insurance quote pretty darn quick. Okay, buyers and sellers, we talked a little bit about, make sure you're coaching them. Hey, great job, you're doing awesome. Here's what you can expect next. Okay, if you've got kind of a general flyer that you can give them about, hey, here's kind of what to expect in week 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is just an overview. Give them that guidance, especially first-time home buyers. They just don't know. We use languages and terms they don't get. Okay, I'll often throw out, so make sure you get in your EMD or your VOD deposit. And they're like, huh? What were those 3 letters? Unless you worked in the government, you're not used to those. I come from the DC area, and everything in military, everything has abbreviations. So be careful with your language, because you want them comfortable to ask questions, but you don't want to be talking above their head. Guide them. What should they expect next? Hey, let's get through the inspection period. You're going to be able to catch your breath for a little bit. I promise it'll slow down. Week 2 gets a little bit better. This point, that's what you're focusing on. Week 3, this is what you're focusing on. So make sure you're guiding them, right? They hired you for your knowledge and experience. Okay. Communication. So the number one reason why sellers don't call their agents back that help them buy the house is because they never hear from them again. Communication is really, really key, and it's key in your customer experience, your experience with the other agent and title and lender, and how that transaction is going to go, right? Where you work might be a big area, but your top agents that are doing business all the time, it's a small world. You want to develop a really good rapport. What's to say your next offer, you make multiple offers and they're like, hey, I closed with her before and she was awesome. She's a really good agent to work with. How do you know that's not the turning leaf, right? So communication, everybody in the transaction, what does that look like? Here are just some tips. As far as the lender, especially now, the appraisal needs to be ordered way sooner. They love to wait till inspections have cleared. I don't have my buyer pay, blah, blah, blah. Hey, can you order the inspection or order the appraisal? It usually takes the appraisal several days to accept the order and a few more to call you. We should be done the inspections in the meantime. If there's a problem, I'll let you know right away. So making sure that lender knows, who to contact for the appraisal, which agent, association information, condo, especially to be ordering that condo questionnaire, following up to just make sure, hey, is the buyer giving you everything you need? Well, actually, they've been a little slow. Awesome. As my agent, I'm going to call and nudge them. I'm going to educate them. Why is it beneficial to not wait 3 days to give the lender another document? Because then they're going to need another and another and one more and one more. Touching base with the lender, especially if you've got a financed buyer who's going to need a time for mail away. Okay, the attorney updating whether you have or don't have the survey. Can you please provide a quote to the buyer if it's my buyer? Have you been able to place the order for title, or is it back, or the estoppels with the associations that take forever? So the estoppel back, is it showing that the buyer is approved yet? Especially again, financed buyer, I don't care if it's my buyer or the other side, I'm letting title and lender know, hey, just learned that the buyer is going to be a mail away. I just want to make sure we all have that on our calendars so that they can sign the day before with the notary and overnight the documents for the funding on the contract close date. That is way harder to coordinate when you find it out 24 hours prior to closing. So as soon as I know, I tell title and lender. Making sure that, buyer has wire instructions as we approach closing. The other agent, just keeping them updated on the status periodically. Don't be afraid to call them. I know we live in the age where it's easier to just drop an email, zip a quick text, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot that can be lost in communication electronically. And you guys know that. Okay. Again, develop that relationship with that agent. Sometimes we just think we're saying something real quick and it comes across really wrong. And now we've got some ground to cover to regain that with that other agent. Okay, you guys have amazing training opportunities and an amazing company that you work with. What if, like Tiffany said, you help one person today? Maybe they're looking for a different company. Maybe they're looking for a different opportunity. Maybe they're looking for some training and knowledge. Okay, maybe you can point them into the right direction. Okay, so I would recommend, don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Hey, how you doing? Just want to let you know, I followed up with the lender today. The appraisal's not in yet. They said they hope to see that in about 2 to 3 days. Just want to let you know, right? This is that communication that develops that rapport for future transactions with that agent. Your client, again, communicate. And it's funny because I don't know about you guys, but after I get to closing, you look at your buyer and seller and you're like, wow, we're not going to talk 10 times a day. Whew, this is going to be weird. Your communication should be that strong with them, providing the answers they need in the direction they need before they have the answer. Okay, I can eliminate a lot of calls and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of panic and frustration for the buyer and seller if I've already communicated in advance. Okay, stay tuned to how they communicate. If they love to text, if they love to email, they might like to email early, they might like to text late. Thank you so much. I appreciate your text. Just so you know, feel free to text me anytime. I will make sure that I respond to you by 9 a.m. the next morning. Whatever your parameters are. Okay. So watch how they communicate. Communication, guys, I can't stress. This is a big deal for client that setting their expectations and meeting them and exceeding them. Okay. So mind shift. I know a lot of times, guys, we're busy, we're running. And there are times that I found myself, especially when I was on a team where my buyer's agent, we kind of get in a tricky situation, and my agent or myself, I was, correct in my action. Sometimes that's not the important thing. The goal is closing. So that's got to be your focus. I had one guy who called me, and I happened to be a VA buyer. My husband was in the Marine Corps. And so we had a VA loan. And he called and he was mad that we had not ordered the termite inspection. Well, that's the seller's responsibility. Why haven't you done that? And we're 3 days into the contract, and you're, every name under the sun. And I was like, oh, well, thank you for your call. The reason we didn't order the inspection is because actually now VA rules have changed, and the seller can order, or the buyer can actually order and pay for their inspection, and actually blah, blah, blah in your area does them for free. Well, that's not right. I've been doing this for 3 years. And I was like, bite my tongue. Been an agent for 18, bought a lot of VA homes. Think I have some education. And so I don't know what stopped me, but I bit my tongue really hard. And I turned around and I said, you know what? That's awesome. I really love working with agents that have experience. It just makes the transaction so much better. That's really amazing. Would you mind doing me a favor? Can you just double check with that lender and just make sure, because I don't want to have a couple inspections going on at the same time. Well, yeah, I'll check on that. He called me back and had to eat crow. It wasn't important that I was right. It wasn't important that I knew more. I invested in the relationship to make sure we got to closing without a heated, ugly situation. If it does get ugly, guys, that stays right here. That ugly does not go to your buyer or seller. It's a business transaction. The other agent ramps up, let them have fun. Stay professional. Because if you ramp up, you've shifted your mindset. Mindset should be a good closing. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you got to work around the lender. You got to work around another agent. You got to work around the title. But they are on the transaction, like it or not. You got to deal with them. So figure out how to do that professionally. Don't compromise yourself. Let them ramp up. Let them be drama. Doesn't mean you have to join them. Okay. So that'd be my challenge, is watch your mind shift when it gets tough in a transaction. Okay. Any questions so far? Sorry, I just saw that there's a chat. It doesn't. So somebody asked about the 4-point inspection. So sorry. So 4-point inspection, yes, is another inspection. It is the home inspector does that. Sometimes they do it and take all the information while they're doing the home inspection, so that your buyer, if they are moving forward, can ask for the report. You usually pay for the, usually get the wind mitigation and the 4-point. You pay for it after the inspection. Sometimes it's part of the package. It is an insurance report on older homes, typically 30 years or older, depending on the insurance carrier. And it's about the main systems of the home. If something does come up on it that doesn't pass, typically can't get financing out without a tricky solution. Okay, typically you're going to see them not pass. In the electrical area, the most I see it is double tapped electric breakers or old electric panels that are fire hazards. Okay, your insurance agent can advise you a little bit more. As a TC, do you help set up systems for agents? So I don't help them set up in the set. Oh, sorry. Hold on. I skipped my screen. Whoop. Bear with me just a second. Let me go back one screen. So do I help agents set up their own systems? The way I do that is basically we become their TC company. And I can definitely talk with you about that. based on the years of doing what I do, I have systems and models. I train all my TCs. I only hire people that are have real estate experience, and we partner with an agent to help them expand their business and grow and take this little stuff off their plate. Right. So very, very good question. Why is it in the buyer's interest to have a survey in their name? I'm going to defer you to an attorney. Okay, ask your title or your attorney on that. There are reasons sometimes where it's beneficial when the buyer goes to turn around and sell as far as title insurance. Okay, but an attorney title person is going to be able to give you the best answer on that, because I am not that. I've just seen what's happened when you didn't have it. Okay, so little details. What are the moving plans? Other states do moving differently, do closing and assumption of the house differently. In Florida, seller needs to be out. We need to have the buyer do a final walkthrough. They choose to do so. Seller cannot close and just hang out for 2 weeks and move when they want. So about 2 weeks prior to closing, hey, seller, how you doing? How are the moving plans going? You hiring a company to move you? Are you kind of doing like the college kids and then, you know, a couple pizzas? What's your plan? How's that going? Oh, well, what do you mean? Okay, we're closing in 2 weeks and you have to be out of the house. Obviously, we say this nicer. Buyer, is your insurance policy bound? Especially if we've got named hurricanes coming through. Please know what that does and impacts your buyer. If you don't know, ask your friendly insurance agent. Ask them, if you partner with an insurance agent, hey, please give me a heads up if I've got any buyers that I need to lock down when the storm's coming. Okay, use your vendors that you trust. They should be educating you in that. Wire final funds prior 24 hours. Typically, I'll tell them 24 hours prior. Please make sure you send your wire so it can be received and verified. Day of closing is not the time for the buyer to figure out that they now have to go to their bank that's 3 states away, because they have to do it in person. Or they went to their bank and the teller was off by 1 digit and it didn't go. Okay, 24 hours. It's one less thing they need to do on the day of closing. That's our goal. Okay, if you do closing gifts, make sure you're ordering those in advance, especially if they're personalized, especially with things taking a little bit longer now. Garage door opener is their garage door opener. Here's my $1 million tip. Ready? Everybody write this down or file it away in your brain. Go to the hardware store this weekend, buy yourself a universal garage remote, throw it in your trunk. You will love me forever. For some reason, we do have buyers that get to the closing. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're emotional, they're done with this. And they're like, what do you mean the seller doesn't have a garage remote? Okay, maybe the seller hasn't used a garage remote in 30 years, or it doesn't work, or they use their car. For some reason, I've seen more meltdowns over this. And I literally have an agent that I taught. She was in my class about 2.5 years ago. She called me 3 months ago. She said, hey, Tammy, I was supposed to say, hey, hi, guess where I'm going? I'm like, where are you going? Caitlin, her name's Caitlin. She's like, yeah, I'm headed to Home Depot. I'm like, Caitlin, you're at a garage door remotes, aren't you? She's like, I sure am. And guess who just melted down at the closing table? And I didn't avoid it. So thanks for that tip from 2.5 years ago, because I'm buying 5 of them. So it's kind of funny to see that come around. Utility transfers. I'm getting that information about two weeks prior to closing. I'm asking the seller or listing agent, hey, can you please tell me utility providers for this home so the buyer can set up their services at the convenience? Lawn guy, pool guy, anybody you want to share that provide services to the home is always helpful. Oh, by the way, buyer or seller, listing agent, is the seller going to be here for closing? Why did I ask that? Because I want to know in advance if we've got a mail away situation. I give it to the buyer's agent. Hey, here you go. Here's all the utility information. By the way, buyer, are you going to be here for closing? If they're a cash buyer, kind of doesn't matter. They can digitally sign 98% of the time. I want to get that information in advance. I want the buyer to be able to sit on hold with the utility company or the cable company for 3 hours when it's convenient for them, not the day of closing. There is nothing worse than moving in and having no AC in Florida because you have no power. Terrible experience, especially when it's a Friday afternoon closing. Okay. Seller reminding them, hey, if you've got any auto payments for insurance, HOA dues, mortgage, whatever, you may want to reach out to them now and see how long they need notice to turn off those auto payments. Much harder to get the money back from an association, I guarantee you, than it is to have it turned off in advance and adjusted at closing. Final walkthrough. When is it? Keys, keys, keys. I can't stress enough for you guys. So when I send a closing summary, I send it to both agents. I copy the title company or the attorney, and here's what I'm communicating. When's the final, what's the closing date? When's the final walkthrough? When's the buyer signing? When's the seller signing? Keys, 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 and title company contact information. What does the buyer want when they sign? Keys. What's the seller want? Money. Seller may be pre-sign and they're bugging you at 9 o'clock in the morning of closing going, I haven't seen my wire, I haven't seen my wire, I haven't seen my wire. Buyer's not signing till 1 o'clock this afternoon. Well, why didn't you tell me? So that information goes to both agents and title, making sure everybody is on the same page, nothing's changed. And then a modification of that email, I send to my buyer or seller. I'd rather tell them in advance, here are the expectations. I don't want to get to the closing table and go, my buyer go, hey, where are the keys? I need the keys. Like my moving truck sitting right there. Where are the keys? Back at the house. Guess who's now driving back to the house instead of going showing more property, instead of lead generating. If I had done that in advance and knew what the plan was, everybody's on the same page. Okay, gate access, security access. I do see this happen a lot. Make sure the buyer knows how to set themselves up, or the seller's called into the gate, or whatever that process might to be. Keys, fobs, tags. They maybe have to go to the the association. Know that in advance they can plan accordingly. Okay, and then just double checking. Again, guys, just a wealth of little details that I've watched buyer sellers get tripped up on, or agents get tripped up on. Why, if we can avoid them? There's going to be bumps in the road. Why not avoid the ones we can avoid? Okay. Any questions on those? Cool. All right. So why do you need leverage, right? So let's talk about average transaction takes about 45 hours, sometimes up to 60 by the time you meet a client, especially in this market, and show and show and show and write before you get to closing, even a seller, sometimes 45 to 60 hours. So what are you spending that time on, right? Because you got to think about it. In your commission, how many hours did you just work? What are you paying yourself per hour? So lead generation, you're doing follow-up, you're doing appointments, showings, negotiations, administrative work. Why is that the biggest one? 30. I put that number up in class one day and the guy's like, Tammy, if it takes you 30, it's going to take me about 92 because I'm terrible at paperwork. It's the administrative stuff, those conversations, those emails, the compliance, everything else that has to be done. Most agents are paying themselves less than $10 an hour to do. And then attending the closing. Let me ask you, we're going to do some simple math. If having a transaction manager takes 20 to 30 hours off your plate, take 30 hours, go invest 30 hours into your business in lead generation. How many appointments can you get? 10? How many of those are going to be contracts? 5, at least. Take 5. Raise your math. Ready to do math? 5 times your average commission. Are you walking away from a lot of money, paying yourself $10 an hour or less? Be really careful with your time, right? That's where the leverage comes in. Guys, it's sometimes like going out going, yeah, I'm just going to use iPhone photos on an $8 million house. Really? Best use of your time? Probably not. Okay, so just make sure when you're working a transaction, make sure you're using your time for the best of your client and the best of your business. Okay. Open for questions. Again, let me come out of the screen share so that I can drop this this tool for you guys. So what I'm dropping into the chat is a PDF, and it is a. Let me see if can I do that? Hold on. What it is it's just some, there we go. So agent contract to close. This is just kind of a general, very vague, or very broad summary, buy side, sell side. If you don't have systems, if you want to tighten your systems, you're like, I can't remember everything Tammy said. So here it is in a PDF version. Again, I want to bring you guys a tool that you can implement today.
Tammy, thank you so much. If you're not using a transaction coordinator, and Tammy, you did a phenomenal job, thank you. And you have a number of EXP people, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And you're
Please
very,
speak
very,
slow.
yeah, you're very familiar with EXP systems. Guys, if you don't have a transaction coordinator, please, stop what you're doing right now. Go look in the mirror and say, I'm not in the real estate business. I'm in, the transaction business, and pushing paperwork in the paperwork business. And the money that you invest in a transaction coordinator it's not even an investment. It's you're saving money when you have a transaction coordinator. I mean, I don't do very many deals at all because of my position, what I'm doing with my group. But I had a check yesterday came in from a commercial leasing space, and it was very simple. I mean, they sent me the check. I sent them the invoice. I could have just put it in Sky Slope. I didn't touch it. I just forwarded to my transaction coordinator. I said, please process. Send me the link to pay you on Zelle and take care of this. And I mean, time is money. So I just encourage you, if you do not have a transaction coordinator, just let that be a message to you that you're not set up properly. And, it's just going to pay you money to have a transaction coordinator, not cost you money.
Thank you. And it's what are you guys good at, right? I will be honest, I've been an agent, I've bought, I've sold. It's not my strength. Don't absolutely love it, right? What I love check boxes. I love systems. I love models. I'm a puzzle person. Give me a puzzle and I'm going to put it all together until I die.
And put your contact in the chat there. And then on your background, I would encourage you to have your phone number and your name, even though it's on the bottom of Zoom, and your phone number and your email. Because, if you don't have a transaction coordinator here, Tammy has given us our time and stuff. I would encourage you to get in contact with her and say, hey, I'm in. What if you don't mind, what is a sale cost?
So buyer or seller, contract to close is $350. We collect at closing. If it's double-sided, we don't double our fees like most companies do. It's only $100 additional, so it would be $450.
Wow.
A lot of my agents have our services for free. You know how? They put it in the contract in the buyer or the seller.
Right.
And here's the thing, they tell them, hey, this is not a junk fee. This doesn't just go to the broker. This
Right.
gives you services and leverage. You have a second person while I'm showing property. Remember, I didn't answer my phone and you have a quick question. You've got a transaction. You've got somebody from my office and we introduce ourselves as part of your team. They see us as an extension of you.
And some of us feel that, if I stay involved and the seller thinks it's more valuable and more. Let me tell you something, your image with the seller, with a professional, when you're finished saying, hi, I have Tammy copied on this email. She's my transaction coordinator. She will be taking this from here to make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed. And then when you do that, your estimation, now you really truly look like a business person in front of your seller or your buyer. It gives you more credibility than if you're missing a date and and the way you all communicate is phenomenal. It's I couldn't live without mine. And I don't do many deals, but even when I was doing $35 million a year, I can't imagine doing that kind of work that you all do. Thank you.
You're welcome. And a lot of my agents, I'll tell you, my top agents, what their big fear is? I'm afraid to lose control because they do think they've got to control every detail for their buyer or seller. And I will tell you, after doing 2 to 3 transactions, they come back and they'll say, Tammy, I have more control now than I ever did. I'm not missing dates. I'm not worried about missing dates. When my buyer or seller needs me, I can focus on them, right? And why is that? Repeats and referrals, guys. I promise you it will come back to you. It really does. Because that buyer or seller got to know you as a person.
Hey, Tammy, can I bounce off of that, what you just said, because it is so invaluable. I apologize for being late to the party. However, you are phenomenal and you have pointed out quite a few things. And for those that may possibly be on the call and your sellers or buyers are having apprehensions, I just always remind my people, when you go to the doctor, does your doctor handle your paperwork? No. I have a great team and I have a great process so that we're all communicating together, so that way I can focus on what your needs are. And this is what I say to them: from contract to close, from starting to listing till we pass over the keys, we have 270 jobs to handle for you behind the scenes. Do you really just want me handling it, or do you want my expertise to handle it?
I love that. It makes it very simple.
Mhm.
Yep. I love that. I'm gonna write that down. You know, some of the teams that I've been with, guys, from small teams, single agents to, I have one team that they, I would start with them 3 years ago and there were 3 of them. There are 18 people on their team. And she knew that by having solid TC freed up her agents and her admins to focus on the growth of the business. From 3 to 18, guys, in 3 years. Think about it. And you're exactly right. Does the doctor do your paperwork? No, he doesn't get paper cuts. Look at those hands. They are skilled hands, right? And you want them helping you, not doing paperwork. Absolutely.
So Jody had a question in the chat, and I know in Florida, I build our transaction management cost into the listing agreement. And on the buy side, I build it in the buyer's representation agreement during our consultation so that they understand.
Yeah, there are only a few attorney states that the attorneys drive everything. Like you can't close until the attorney gives you permission. But in Florida and most of our southern states, yeah, so you put them in the buyer's agreement, you put in the listing agreement. There's also a spot in the contract, Florida contract. Now, some of my agents choose to use it as a business write-off, right? It's 1099, that's their deduction. Or if they get any pushback at all, they'll say, hey, this is so valuable, I'm going to pay this for you. So they tell them about it. Even if they plan on paying it every time, they use it as a value add. Hey, you're going to have a transaction with, this is my person, she's part of my team, blah, blah, blah. And usually it's $350, but you know, I've really enjoyed working with you and I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to pay that for you. And they mark it out and put whatever it is. Again, value add. Depends on how you want to do your business.
So Tammy, you just touched on something too, that some people, I know if they're a PA, LLC, individual team, do they 1099 you or do they straight expense it?
I can give them a report at the end of the year. They don't need to give me a 1099. I can give you a report at the end of the year to give the accountant.
Oh, y'all, that is priceless. That is worth her weight in gold. Hello.
I get a couple calls from agents. I'm sitting with my accountant. I forgot to ask you. Hold on, I'll get it to you. It's tax season, guys. And on that note, any sellers from last year, tax season, great reason to reach out. Hey, haven't talked to you for a while, tax season, got your closing documents for you. Just want to send them hello, how are you? Do you know anybody? Just a side tip, nothing to do with TC. What other questions you got for me, guys? I'm here, 18 years of experience in making mistakes. How can I help you? If you think of anything, I call it delayed intelligence. Happens to me all the time. My contact information's in there. I know George has my information, so does Tom, so does Tiffany. Reach out with questions, kind of need an out of the box thinking. Use me as a resource. Definitely make sure you grab that PDF and use that if you need that. Would love to talk to you and answer any questions you have that come up after the fact. If you're driving, you're like, hey, can't really jump in at this moment. Give me a call, give me a text, I'll give you a call.
Hey, Tammy,
really
before you hop
Tammy
off,
is my TC.
thank
as
you,
well.
Tiffany. Where are you located, Tammy?
So we're located in Sarasota, Florida, but we work with
Nice.
agents all over. So, but yes, so we speak SkySlope, DocuSign, Loop, MLS, very different, a lot of different MLSs. If you want help with listings, we can also talk to you about how that process works. But our goal, guys, is to keep it really simple, right? Simple for you, simple for your clients. That's how you're going to grow your business. Stop taking your iPhone photos and your $8 million listings. Stop giving yourself $10 paper cuts for an hour worth of work.
Thank you, Tammy.